The storm rolled in just afternoon, a summer downpour that soaked the lawn and sent paper streamers whipping off the fence posts as thunder echoed like distant drums. And inside the Whitlock family's Victorian house on Marigold Lane, the smell of buttercream frosting and wet candles filled the basement where a birthday party had just begun, the kind of party that still clung to childhood magic, with hand-painted signs, glittered hats, and music playing low from an old cassette player, and standing in the center of it all, wearing a lavender dress and plastic tiara, was Emily Whitlock, beaming with a full certainty that today, July 9, 1995, was hers alone to hold forever, her parents snapping photos, cousins giggling in corners, neighbors piling gifts by the floral couch that hadn't moved in 30 years, and as the rain thickened and water tapped against the basement windows, the grown-ups joked about how the party would need to stay below ground, safer, drier, maybe even more fun, and Emily didn't mind because she had a game planned, a hide-and-seek twist she called Vanishing Princess, where she would hide and everyone else would search, and whoever found her first would get the biggest slice of cake, so she darted behind boxes and under blankets as the lights flickered once, then again, until a single bulb buzzed and dimmed like a candle in wind, and time passed, a few minutes, then 20. Then someone laughed nervously and said, "Okay, Emily, you win," but there was no answer, no giggle, no footsteps on creaky wood, just silence, thick and pressing, and when they finally called her name with real panic, and pulled away the dusty sheets, and opened every door and corner and closet, she was gone. No Emily, not in the laundry chute, not under the stairs, not even in the backyard where the tire swing still swayed alone in the rain, and the cake sat on the table untouched, pink frosting glistening, candles half-burnt, one fork missing, and the air around it strangely warm like someone had just breathed across it, and the basement, once glowing with party light, now felt too deep, too close, too cold, and the police came, and dogs sniffed, and reporters arrived, and her mother wept in the driveway while holding the lavender tiara as if it might still hum with her daughter's laughter, and the house grew quiet in the weeks after, taped off, searched, x-rayed, even drilled. But Emily Whitlock was never found, no ransom note, no sign of struggle, no clues except for a game that never ended, a party with no birthday girl, and a cake that no one could bring themselves to throw away, and in time, the town forgot, the parents moved, the rooms upstairs collected dust, and the basement was sealed tight with concrete and old grief, until exactly 30 years later, a young couple named Eli and Marissa Harper bought the house cheap in 2025, unaware of its history, charmed by its bones, excited to renovate, and when they peeled away the basement wall hoping to expand the space, they found a sealed wooden door behind the drywall, and behind that, a table, and on that table, a single birthday cake, pink frosting still bright, candles unburnt, and next to it, a plastic tiara. If you're still watching, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more haunting stories every week. The police report listed Emily Carter as last seen in the family's finished basement, where her 12th birthday party had just begun to wind down, balloons deflating, music fading, cake half-eaten, and her friends upstairs getting picked up by their parents one by one. But Emily was never seen exiting the house, and though officers scoured every floor, checked every door and window, even brought in K9 units to sniff through the wooded ravine behind the house, no trace of the girl, not even a single thread of her lavender dress, was ever recovered, the entire case becoming a quiet tragedy. A local legend whispered over the years but never solved, and eventually, her family moved out, too hollowed by grief to stay in the house where their daughter's laughter still echoed in their heads, until decades later, when the Dalton couple purchased the same property with plans to renovate the basement into a recording studio, unaware of what history lingered in the walls. And when Eli's hammer cracked through a strangely hollow patch behind a false wall, and his flashlight beam revealed what appeared to be a sealed chamber with thick wooden slats and no known entrance, his stomach dropped, because something about the air felt wrong, warm, slightly sweet, like frosting left out too long. Marissa joined him and together they pried the boards away, breath held tight in their lungs, until the opening gave way to a hidden room, untouched by time, and there it was, perfectly preserved, a table set for a party. Pink and lavender balloons hanging limp above, the exact same cake from 1995 still on the table, slightly sagged but unmistakably real, and still faintly warm to the touch, and on the far side of the room, a small wooden chair lay tipped over beside an old camcorder, blinking with a red light, like it had never stopped recording, and Marissa let out a sharp gasp as she noticed something else. Dozens of childish drawings pinned to the far wall, all of them showing a door, a spiral, a girl in a tiara, and beneath each one, written in crayon, the same phrase repeated. Still 12, still waiting. Eli backed away, hand trembling as he reached for his phone to call someone. anyone, but the signal was dead in the room, completely blacked out, and when he stepped back into the main basement to try again, he found the breaker box open and wires scorched, as if someone or something didn't want them to leave or speak, and Marissa screamed from a hidden room. Eli rushed back and found her staring at the camcorder screen, which had begun playing on its own, showing blurry, looped footage of the birthday party, with young Emily staring directly into the lens, smiling at first, then slowly frowning, then whispering something under her breath before the footage looped again and again, always the same pattern: smile, frown, whisper, loop, and when Marissa leaned in to hear what she was saying, the screen cut to static and a single word flashed across it: return. Neither of them slept that night, and by morning, when they tried to explain what they saw to the local authorities, the hidden room was gone, completely sealed again with a fresh layer of drywall and new pipes, as if it had never existed, and the drawings had vanished too, but the warmth of the cake still lingered in the air like a trace of something unfinished, something watching, something trapped. And back at their kitchen table, Eli pulled out one of the photos he managed to snap before things disappeared, showing a blurry shot of the crayon writing, and in the background, something neither of them had noticed before: a shadow, tall and narrow, standing behind Emily, not part of the decorations, not human, not quite real, and suddenly their phones buzzed at the same time with no caller ID, only a text message that read, "She's still here," and the house, silent for hours, suddenly groaned above them, the sound of something shifting in the attic. Eli and Marissa didn't sleep that night. They sat in the living room with every light on, the tape still playing in their minds. The way Emily smiled one second and vanished from her chair the next, as if time had skipped like a scratched disc. The message on the phone, "She's still here," kept flashing even after they turned the screen off, and when the fridge hummed or the floorboards creaked, both of them would flinch and stare down the hallway toward the basement door. By morning, Marissa suggested bringing in someone, an expert in anomalies, time disturbances, anything. But Eli said no, not yet. They needed to understand this themselves first, so he went back down alone, flashlight shaking in one hand and the old Polaroid camera in the other, and as he stepped back into the sealed room, the air felt thicker than before, like he had passed through something, a membrane or veil, and the moment his foot crossed the threshold, the sound changed. Everything muted slightly, like underwater, and even his own breath sounded far away. He snapped pictures of the cake, now completely fresh as if just baked. The candles were warm when he touched them, and the party hats had moved slightly, just enough to notice. He turned slowly, capturing each angle until he saw it, on the far wall, a mirror he hadn't seen before, aged and cracked, and in the reflection behind him, a figure, a little girl, Emily, standing still, her eyes locked with his in the mirror, though she wasn't in the room when he turned around, just gone. Vanished again. He stumbled back and crashed into the table, knocking the cake to the floor where it landed face up, undisturbed. Not a crumb shifted, like it defied gravity or logic. He raced back upstairs, heart racing, slamming the door behind him, and Marissa ran to meet him, grabbing his arms, asking what happened, and when he tried to explain, the lights flickered and the old landline, unplugged for years, rang once, just once, then silence, and when they looked at the caller ID it said, Emily's room, and the date was flashing, March 14, 1995, which made no sense. They hadn't even moved in yet, and Marissa whispered, "What if we're not alone in the timeline?" That night, they pulled out the home's blueprints and noticed something odd. Beneath the basement, another space, not listed. A void between the foundation and the earth, labeled only as sublevel B, with a warning scrawled in faded pencil. Sealed by request, do not disturb. The handwriting matched none of the construction notes, and the ink was smeared like someone wrote it while crying or bleeding. They stared at it in silence before Eli said he'd go alone again in the morning. But that night, Marissa heard music. Faint piano notes, a child's melody drifting through the air vents, and when she followed it, barefoot and trembling, it led her not to the basement, but to the attic, where a cold draft flowed from behind a stack of old boxes, and when she moved them, the wall was marked with tiny handprints in crayon, dozens of them, all around a phrase written over and over again in a looping childlike scrawl. "It's still my birthday," she screamed, falling back, and Eli came running, pulled her from the attic and locked the door. Both of them now convinced something wasn't just haunting them, but repeating, looping like a scratched record, and somehow Emily was caught inside it, or worse, was becoming it. They decided to leave the house the next day, but when morning came, every door was bricked shut from the outside. The windows no longer showed the street but instead flickered with grainy footage of birthday parties, on loop, and a voice on the radio said, "Stay for cake," as though it was waiting for them to sit, to celebrate, to finish what was started 30 years ago. They hadn't slept in 2 nights, not really. Not since the radio whispered Emily's name and the mirror in the basement showed her face. Not since Marissa found the birthday card addressed to Emily from Mommy. In her own handwriting but in ink she didn't own, with words she didn't remember writing, and now every hour felt stretched, distorted, like the house wasn't just haunted, it was looping. Replaying moments from 1995 as if time had never moved on. As if Emily's 12th birthday never ended, and Eli had started marking the hours with chalk lines on the wall, but even those began disappearing by morning, as though the house didn't want them to keep track, and that night, the phone rang again, same number, same date, and this time Marissa answered, hands trembling, whispering hello, but no one spoke, only a faint sound of children singing happy birthday off-key, slow and distant. And then a little girl's voice said, "You're in my room." Before the line went dead and suddenly all the clocks in the house froze at 4:13 p.m., and that's when Eli noticed something new. The guest book on the kitchen counter, the one that had been empty when they moved in, was now filled with names, 10 pages of names and messages, all dated March 14, 1995, and many said things like "Thank you for inviting me, Emily," or "Great cake." But none of these guests existed. No family members, no neighbors they knew, and a chill ran through him as he flipped to the final page and saw the words "See you again next year" written in thick, childish letters. And then something fell upstairs, a dragging sound, not stomping, not running, but like someone pulling a heavy object across wooden floors, and when they ran up to check, they found the hallway lined with balloons, identical to the ones in the old photo they found of Emily's birthday party, yellow with pink ribbons, and in the center of the hallway, where nothing had been before, was a folding table with a pink cloth and 12 plastic plates neatly arranged, each with a cupcake, and behind it, a video camera, pointed toward the attic door, blinking red, recording, and Eli didn't remember setting it up, neither did Marissa, but it was definitely theirs, their camera, with a dead battery just yesterday, now fully charged, and already containing footage they didn't film, and when they played it back, the screen showed an angle from inside the attic, pointed at the hatch. Hours of nothing but silence until around the 5-hour mark, a hand pushed the hatch open slowly, and a girl, Emily, in the same polka-dot dress as in the old family photo, crawled out. Except she didn't look 12, she looked older, closer to 17, her face pale, her eyes sunken, like she had been watching from some other place, and she whispered, "You almost forgot," then smiled directly at the camera. And the recording cut to static, and Marissa dropped the camera as the attic hatch above them creaked open by itself, revealing nothing but thick darkness beyond. And then every balloon popped at once, a thunder of sound that shook the windows, and the smell of cake filled the house again, too sweet, artificial, almost chemical, and that night, they both slept in the living room with the lights on, holding each other, hearts pounding, knowing they had passed some invisible threshold, that Emily didn't want to be remembered. She wanted to be restored, and the next morning the guest book had new pages filled in Marissa's handwriting, but she had no memory of writing them, and the messages said things like "The party's getting closer, don't forget the candles, and your seat's still empty," and now they could hear music playing faintly from the basement, something like an old tape looped over and over, a piano melody that never resolved, a melody that played even when the radio was off, even when the power was cut, and Eli decided he had to go back down there. Deeper than before, past the place where the floor had collapsed, using a rope ladder they found tied in a bundle beneath the sink, an object neither of them recalled placing there, and as he descended, the temperature dropped, and the stone walls narrowed, and the further he went, the more it smelled like frosting and mildew and something metallic, and then he reached a chamber lined with decaying birthday banners, all saying, "Happy 12th, Emily." And in the center was a perfectly preserved round table with a birthday cake that hadn't rotted, hadn't aged, its candles freshly lit, casting no shadows, and behind it another mirror, and in it he saw himself, but standing beside him was Emily, and when he turned, no one, just empty space, but in the reflection she placed her hand on his shoulder, smiled faintly and whispered, "Now you remember," and then the lights went out, the air went still, and upstairs Marissa screamed as the TV switched itself on and showed a live feed of Eli staring at nothing, surrounded by invisible hands brushing his arms, his face, his back, and she screamed louder when the camera turned itself toward the lens and the image froze on a close-up of a girl's eye blinking slowly, and beneath it, words appeared, "She's almost ready," and then all the candles in the house lit at once. Eli's breath fogged in the air as he stepped deeper into the stone corridor, every brick wall etched with handprints in crayon, dozens of them, some small, some smeared, some spelling out names, Emily, Jordan, Lissy, like a roster of the forgotten, and the farther he moved, the louder the hum became, not a machine, not wind, but a low rhythmic chant, soft and melodic, like a child singing through old tape, and it led him to a chamber where the walls had been painted in pastel tones, faint purples and yellows, and in the center sat a table covered in party hats, melted candles, a spinning music box playing Happy Birthday, and in the corner, a single chair with a blindfold resting on its cushion, and scrawled beside it in glitter pen on the concrete were the words "Your turn next." And Eli's legs gave way for a second, but he caught himself on the table, knocking the music box to the ground. And as the song distorted, something scraped from behind a cracked storage door, slow and dragging, and when he opened it, the tunnel continued, smaller now, lined with ripped gift wrap and crushed plastic forks, as if someone had been living down there for years, surviving on memory and sugar. And when he found the small bunk carved into the wall, the bed sheets were embroidered with Emily 95, and beside it sat a journal, its pages trembling in his grip as he flipped through them and read entries dated every year. Since, each one starting with "They told me I had to wait until the cake was warm again," and ending with "Maybe next year I'll be 12 for real," and the ink smudged from tears or time, and just then the voice returned, Marissa's, echoing faintly through a vent above. "Eli, I think you need to see this," and he rushed back the way he came, clambering up the steps, barely noticing the way the candles behind him lit themselves one by one, and upstairs in the living room, Marissa stood by the wall, her hand trembling, pointing to the birthday banner that had changed, the name now glowing with flickering red paint, "Happy Birthday, Marissa," and she stumbled back, whispering, "It was never Emily," and Eli's mind reeled, remembering the voice from the viz, the blurred birthday girl never speaking, just watching. And in a sudden rush he realized that all the photos from the basement had a different girl's face each year, but always the same dress, the same setting, the same cake, and the next flash of insight hit him like ice. Someone or something was replacing the child every cycle, keeping the game going, and they had just stepped into its loop, and before either of them could move, the stereo in the corner crackled on and played the last recorded birthday message, a child's voice saying, "One more guest, and the game is full," followed by a high-pitched giggle that echoed through the vents like it came from under the floorboards, and Eli whispered, "It was never about her birthday. It was about the party," just as the power cut out, plunging them into darkness. The air shifted the moment Marissa stepped back into the basement. It wasn't just colder, it was heavier, like the walls themselves were exhaling memories. The sealed door that had once been fused shut now stood cracked open as if something had been released, and inside, the small table with a birthday cake flickered in candlelight again, untouched, unspoiled, still warm like no time had passed, the same strawberry glaze glistening over soft sponge, the same pink paper plate stacked beside it, except now, there were 12 chairs pulled up to the table, not one, not three, 12, and on each plate sat a small cupcake with a child's name written in frosting, name she didn't recognize, except for the last one, Marissa, spelled in precise cursive, and the flicker of candlelight made it look like it was melting, dripping her name across the table like blood. Eli stepped in behind her slowly, staring at the names, his lips moving silently as he counted them, 12. 12 children who had vanished across time, across houses, across towns, their disappearances never connected until now, and then the wall behind the table began to pulse, not with light, but with memory, with images burned into paint and plaster. They saw flickers of home videos projected onto the bare concrete, children opening presents, playing musical chairs, singing Happy Birthday in flat, hollow harmony, each frame stuttering and looping, each laugh warped and broken. Then a face appeared, not a child's, but that of a woman they had never seen, pale eyes, long braided hair, holding up a birthday crown made of bone and paper, and she spoke without sound, mouthing the words, 12 to 1. 1 to 12. You're the link, and the projector died with a snap, plunging them into silence, but the silence didn't last because the basement door slammed shut, locking them inside, and the stereo turned on again. Louder now, louder than it ever had before, blasting distorted birthday songs backward, then layered with a scream that wasn't human and wasn't machine either, a scream made of too many voices at once. Marissa covered her ears, but it echoed inside her head, and suddenly, the air rippled like water, and a girl appeared at the head of the table, not floating, not ghostly, real, solid, 12 years old, wearing the same floral dress from the photo, cheeks smudged with frosting, tears in her eyes. And when she saw Marissa, she didn't speak, she only reached forward with shaking hands and whispered, "It's your turn to blow out the candles." And all at once, the cake's 12 candles flared brighter, flames tall and unnatural, dancing in sync, and the room felt like it was closing in, pulsing with energy, with time folding in on itself. Eli stepped between them and tried to speak, but his voice came out backward, garbled, as if they were inside a tape playing the wrong way, and Marissa realized she was holding something in her hand she hadn't picked up, a matchbook, old damp, labeled Briar Hollow Catering, EST. 1995 and on the inside, scrawled in the same handwriting from the journal. To end the cycle you must begin the song. Her heart raced, unsure what song, unsure what any of it meant, but her instincts told her to sing, and she began humming the birthday song softly, brokenly, as the flames calmed, as the girl sat down, as the chairs around her filled with flickers of shadowy children one by one. Some missing faces, some missing hands, all staring at her with longing, with sadness, with silent hope, and as she reached the final line of the song, everything froze, then the candles snuffed themselves out with a breath of cold air, the projector shattered, the stereo popped and died, and the table slowly dissolved into dust, leaving nothing but silence and a room full of empty chairs. Then, without sound or warning, the basement lights turned back on. White, sterile, normal, and the sealed door opened like it had never been locked. Eli and Marissa stepped out into the hallway in a daze, and behind them, the room was just a room again, unfinished, concrete, abandoned, no table, no cake, no children, only the faint sound of wind whistling through a vent overhead. They drove home in silence that night, neither speaking, neither daring to ask if it had really happened. But when Marissa woke up the next morning, her phone had a notification, new memory available, and it was a video of her as a child at a birthday party she didn't remember, surrounded by 12 kids she didn't know, all singing, all smiling, and in the background, standing near the edge of the camera's view, was the girl in the floral dress holding the bone crown and mouthing the words, "Now you remember," and Marissa screamed and dropped the phone, but the video kept playing, looped, glitched, stuck on her frozen smile, and as she looked down, she realized her birthday was still 2 months away, yet on the kitchen counter was a small strawberry cake, still warm, and beside it, a single paper plate with her name written in cursive icing, alone.